Hello everyone and welcome back to my opinion. And this video will be the continuation of the last video where I went through the retentions for four of the teams in the IPL. And those teams were the Mumbai Indians, the Chennai Super Kings, Kolkata Knight Riders, and Royal Challengers Bangalore. And today and for this video I'll be doing it for Sunrisers Hyderabad, Kings 11 Punjab, Rajasthan Royals, and Delhi Capitals. And so, starting off with SRH, they've released Sanjay Yadav, Sandeep Bavankar, if that's how you say his name, Billy Stanlake, Fabian Allen, and Yara Prithviraj. And so, once again, this was kind of the surplus from their squad. I mean, I thought that Billy Stanlake, personally, I'm a big fan of him because I think that he's extremely hard to play and he bowls a pace and he has this mechanical action and that really gets the ball to rise. And you've seen bowlers with mechanical actions. You've seen the kind of effect that they have with Bumrah, Lockie Ferguson, Jofra Archer, Billy Stanlake as well. And it's kind of like they get the ball to rise and it makes it just kind of kick off the pitch and it makes it really uncomfortable for the batsmen, and they can all bowl upwards of 145 kilometers per hour, and this makes it a nightmare to face because of how much the ball kicks up off the surface at pace. And that's why I thought that despite the fact that seeing all this, I still think Billy Stanlake would have been a very good proposition for any side, especially bowling up front with what he offers, because you could kind of, especially if you're, let's say if you're an opening batsman and it's trying to get your eye in. I mean, the last thing you want is someone with a Billy Stanlake kind of action, bowling at his pace and his height. It just troubles batsmen. And even so, in IPL 2018, he was actually effective at first, and he bowled his four overs, I think, before the 11th over usually. And because again, he's not really a death bowler, he kind of bowls his first four overs in the first half of the innings, and it did work for Sunrisers as a kind of a bank in the early stage of the tournament. But players started kind of playing him more positively, and so his effectiveness kind of decreased. And so, yeah, he didn't really get a game in the 2020 IPL, and I can understand why they have released him. And I'm not sure whether anyone will buy him despite what he offers. And the only problem with him is that it takes up an overseas slot, and a lot of these teams, they kind of have players who feel. I'm not saying Billy Stanlake's role isn't a good one, but I'm saying they have a lot of players who fill these other integral roles, and so they may not find room for Billy Stanlake, despite how good he is. They may not really be able to, one, fit him into the side because of combinations, and two, drop their other overseas quick to fit him in, because who knows, that bowler may fit into their plans more than what Billy Stanlake does, and they may have to change the way they go about things if they put Billy Stanlake in, which just may not be possible. So that's on Billy Stanlake. He offers, as I said, he offers something that's very good, but I'm not sure that many teams will be able to accommodate him, unfortunately. Then, apart from that, there's Fabian Allen, who didn't get a game. And honestly, this is in a Sunrisers team that, yes, they made the statement call in the 2020 season where they dropped Johnny Bairstow, and they were, Vidyaman Saha came good. And it was very good for their team because they got a keeper as good as Vidyaman Saha and kind of filling the same role as Johnny Bairstow did, this aggressive opening batsman. It really kind of filled in a role that Johnny Bairstow plays, and making sure that an Indian player is filling that role to kind of address another issue in the squad, and that was their middle order batting. And so they put Jason Holder in, who has batted at 4 in T20 tournaments around the world, especially in the CPO. He's batted at 4 and he's a genuine all-rounder. And here's the thing is that you can play him in the his batting is good enough for him to get into a middle order as a batsman. And I guess the thing is that he also offers a bowling option as well, and he did do very well in the season in the UAE. And the thing is that I still feel that it would be interesting to see, I said this when I was reviewing Sunrisers this season, is that if on a flatter track when they were really kind of going after him, it'd be interesting to see how he adapted. But I mean, as I said, look, he got the conditions where, it kind of, the conditions were slow, and he used his height to also, generate some bounce, and he kept things tight because he has very good control even when you see him bowl in test match cricket. And so he used that to his advantage, and he had a very good season with the bat and ball. And so yeah, that's my thing on Jason Holder. I mean, that was kind of a segue into Jason Holder, and I'm saying this because I'm actually surprised that they went for him over Mohammad Nabi, because he's done well for them, on many occasions when they've played him, and he's kind of been unlucky to sit out, because when they were playing Bairstow, it was David Warner, Johnny Bairstow, Kane Williamson, and Rashid Khan. And Kane Williamson, for me, I thought that he wouldn't have really been able to get into the side if you think about the fact that, he would prefer opening the batting. And yes, he's done brilliantly at number 3, but I'm saying sometimes, especially in the 2019 season, he kind of struggled a bit. I understand he was rusty and he was injured. He didn't really get many games, but what I'm trying to say is that I first, when you look at this side, you wouldn't really think that Kane Williamson made the side. But I think that after his performances in 2018, where he led in the absence of David Warner and took Sunrisers to the finals, I mean, he scored, I think, 784, I think, runs in that tournament, which is just ridiculous. And really, I mean, he's kind of a player who everyone seems to doubt in the T20 format, and yet he always seems to find a way. I mean, even this season, he came in at number 4 with not many deliveries to face, and yet he just managed to find a way to get quick runs, and not blistering strike rates, but let's say a good 150, 160 to kind of push the total on and make Sunrisers feel comfortable, because after that, despite the fact that there are the Abdul Samads who, as I said, are future prospects from before, they are vulnerable to a batting collapse in the middle order. And that's the reason why I felt that, along with Jason Holder, the emergence of Abdul Samad and Kane Williamson's role at number 4 and Manish Pandey's role at number 3. And if you put Warner and Saha at the top, I think that this team, maybe the batting may have even nearly been sorted. And so that's the reason why that's my segue into Kane Williamson, is the fact is that I think his 2018 performances have made him be in the side, and we once again saw how good he was in the 2020 season in just getting quick runs for his team in situations where he wouldn't really want to bat. I mean, he's someone who likes to give himself time, but he didn't really have the opportunity to do that, and he still did very well. So yeah, apart from that, I mean, coming back to Fabian Allen, it was a big segue into the overseas players, because he's competing with Mohammad Nabi, and before Shakib, when Shakib Al Hasan was banned, so he couldn't play, that tournament, but then he may have even been competing with him. And you could say, in a way, he was competing with Kane Williamson, as, Johnny Bairstow and David Warner were the dynamic opening pair from 2019 and still had a few good ones in 2020 as a partnership. And because of that, they would have been kind of the more favourable options to go for, rather than the more measured Kane Williamson relatively. So that's why I think that he was actually also, with Kane Williamson not being captain, he was kind of competing for a place with Kane Williamson as well. I mean, obviously, Kane Williamson's a better batsman, and so, to bat in kind of the number 4 position, you would put Kane Williamson rather than Fabian Allen. But I'm saying that Jason Holder could have maybe also played that role at number 4, and I understand it may have created a bit of a thing at number 5, because you can't really put someone at number 5. But I'm saying that, yeah, so I can understand why they didn't play him. And he kind of was bought at base price just to maybe maximum probably play 2 games, because you never really saw him getting in the side. And so I'm not surprised that they retained him. And the others, I mean, look, I've seen Sanjay Yadav in the TNPL, but I haven't really seen Bhavanka and Prithviraj. And so we never really got to see any of the others. And yeah, that's Sunrisers Hyderabad. They have 10.75 crores left, and so because their team, the batting seems to be, they seem to have kind of found a better formula in the 2020 IPL season that they would probably continue with, and they have a very good bowling attack, and so yeah, I just feel that they wouldn't be trying to do too much, and maybe what two high profile buys, maybe what 5 crores and 5 crores, and even then depends on overseas limits because they've released Billy Stanley and Fabian Allen. So probably they can get two overseas players. If there's a role, maybe Indian middle order batsman, definitely, as I said, in case you can't really play Jason Holder. Maybe not playing Jason Holder in every game. You want to tinker with the team, it gives you flexibility. And apart from that, I mean, Bhuvneshwar Kumar, I hope he doesn't get an injury because he seems like he's been playing with an injury for India as well. And that's why, unfortunately or fortunately, India have kind of adapted without him. And it's unfortunate that we don't get to see him bowl. But however, it's fortunate that India have the options that they've managed to adapt without him being there. And so, yeah, I hope that, if he's, he may not be fully fit because I'm not sure, with age, he's not the youngest. So I'm not sure how his, 100% fitness would really go for him. But I'm saying that if he can play, they can rest him for a few games. And if he can play a substantial part of the tournament, him and Natarajan. And I think that look, Khalil Ahmed didn't really feature. I mean, he featured in a few games, but he wasn't really mainly part of their plans. And so I think that they would want him to have a better season. And the thing with Khalil Ahmed is that actually there are times when there's this one delivery for me when it's his outswinger to the right hander, which I really like. And he bowls a 140 odd, and he swings the ball. For me, I think his outswingers are very good. It's just that the problem is that when he gives runs, and he doesn't really. Apart from that delivery, I've not really kind of seen any other time where he's kind of really been bowling well. And this isn't really any disrespect to him. I feel that as someone who was in India's plans, and look, he's still part of the crop of fast bowlers that India have generated. I think a good season for him would be very beneficial to the Sunrisers, and will also kind of keep him in the corner of the eye of the selectors as far as maybe plans to get him to play for India. And yeah, that's on Khalil Ahmed. And so yeah, Sunrise is fairly uncomplicated. I mean, they may just go for domestic. I'm not really sure what they'll really want to do apart from the roles that I said. And so yeah, 10.75 crores, not much you can do. Kind of release a surplus from their squad. And so yeah, that's the Sunrisers. Then there's Kings 11. Now they have really released. This is the thing here. They've released Glenn Maxwell, Sheldon Cottrell, Krishnappa Gautam, Mujibur Rahman, Jimmy Neesham, Hardisfield Leon, and Karun Nair. And that's why they have 53.2 crores left. I mean, you can really get some serious buys for that. And some high-profile players. I mean, look at the players they've released there. Maxwell, Cottrell, Mujibur Rahman, and even Karun Nair has played in quite. I mean, alright, he didn't really feature much in the 2020 season, but especially when they first got him in 2018, he did feature a lot, and he actually batted very well. And so yeah, I just feel that getting into the players who they've retained. I mean, Glenn Maxwell, despite the fact that he's been in brilliant form in the Australian summer against India in the limited overs legs that he played, I feel that as far as Kings 11 are concerned, it was kind of the right move to release him because, it's kind of been this expectation every season and it just hasn't worked out. And they've paid, big bucks for him. So I can understand why that they have released him. And he was another player like Kuldeep Yadav, like Rishabh Pant. I keep on mentioning this, that mental platform to really go and express himself. And it was kind of a thing where, all right, it was kind of game situation. If you even look at the Australian team, they kind of look to protect Glenn Maxwell. And I mean, when Australia lost early wickets against England in the semi-final, they actually sent Alex Carey ahead of Glenn Maxwell, and he did bat a decent while, and they would have wanted him to do that and even batted through an injury because they wanted to protect Glenn Maxwell. And here's the thing, the reason why he was able to flourish against India, not that he isn't a good player, because he has got a test 100 against India, but I'm saying that, the thing is that maybe in a situation where you lose early wickets and be put under pressure, it isn't really a situation for him. And the situation is where you've got a platform built and you can just come in a good mindset, having freedom, being happy, because we've seen that he has taken mental health breaks from the game, and he has kind of opened up about the struggles they experienced, especially the time when he's playing for Melbourne Stars and he basically left a straight ball. Just he tried to go down the track and just stopped and just let it go past him and hit the stumps. And there was this video on cricket dot au. I mean, I don't know exactly, but the Australian YouTube channel, the cricket YouTube channel, where there was a quote saying, "I literally hated the game," and so no one should be subject to kind of mental health problems, and especially with the pressure that cricketers and any sportsman experiences. Mental health problems, the problem is that it kind of limits you to, one, be happy, and two, it just kind of interferes in your kind of your trying to create a template for yourself to just perform, to kind of get in the zone and just perform in a place where you're completely mentally satisfied and you're just able to solely focus on the game and be happy with what you do and just put in good performances because you are in the right mindset. And that's the reason why mental health issues, it's very the fact that players are taking mental health breaks, and obviously with the bubble life, it is taking a toll. And David Warner announced that he wouldn't be playing the Big Bash probably until his Australia career is over. And I feel that it is a big part. It's one thing that this COVID-19, this pandemic is kind of impacted, because various players may pull out at certain stages and most probably may compromise leagues that aren't really the IPL, because no disrespect to other leagues, but they would kind of be thinking, look, IPL is where you get the recognition, you get the money, so on and so forth. And so that's the reason why maybe other cricket may suffer. You've seen the Big Bash where a few people have pulled out, especially England players have pulled out, like Tom Banton, because of the kind of the bubble life. And that's the reason why that was my segue into kind of mental health. And so if he's kind of given this platform to really express himself, maybe RCB need a middle order player after AB de Villiers and Virat Kohli. And so Glenn Maxwell at number 5, and they've released Moeen Ali as well, so maybe someone to fill in his role, can bowl a bit as well and can bat, a dynamic player, a match winner, a game changer. And I remember when this innings was against India, and we remember this. I think it was in the 7th ODI. There was 7. I mean, sorry, not. Yes, it was the 7th ODI, because even though India won the series 3-2, I think 2 of the games were rained off, and it was a very unique series. I mean, one, it was George Bailey. It probably was the best I've ever seen him bat. Him and Virat Kohli were scoring so many runs. It was a series for Rohit Sharma where he hadn't scored 157 innings. And in the second ODI, he scored 141 not out of 123, with Virat Kohli also scoring 100 off 52, which I believe is the fastest 100 by an Indian in ODI cricket. And so, yes, it was those kind of games where it was, and also with the double 100 in that series for Rohit Sharma, it was a very pivotal series for him. And it was a series where George Bailey and Virat Kohli were dominating. And that was my thing on that series. And it's where Glenn Maxwell scored 60 of 22, where India scored 383 for 6. And Glenn Maxwell comes in, Australia aren't in that great of a position. He comes in and just smashes Ashwin around everywhere. And I mean, this is the thing, I wanted India to win the game, but just seeing how ridiculous his personal score as far as runs per balls was getting. I mean, 60 of 22, and just seeing him hit sixes all around the place, and it was an incredible thing to watch. And even though in the context of the game, I wanted India to win and win the series, it was a really enjoyable experience seeing him hit the bowlers around, and he hit Ashwin around, and it was very enjoyable to see him. And I felt very sad that he got out, because it was kind of a thing where I would have wanted him to. He really kind of deserved 100 for what he was doing. And if he had got out and Australia still, they lost the game, because in the end they lost by quite a bit in the end. But I mean, you look at the scoreboard, you think that it wasn't close. But in the end, James Faulkner scored 116 of 93, and it was actually, the game was getting a bit close. Shane Watson, while he was injured, was smashing Vinay Kumar around, and I believe Vinay Kumar got hit for 100 in that game. He was kind of spurred on by the whole Shikhar Dhawan mocking his injury kind of thing. I remember this because I watched those games live, and that's why if you tell me what's the best innings Glenn Maxwell's I've seen him ever play, and I've seen him play many innings, but that innings for me was absolutely brilliant and great to watch. And knowing what he can do, I think RCB will be a very good place for him, maybe even CSK, because they need this player in the middle order. We saw how they struggled following the old template in leaving it till the end. You need someone to take things by the scruff of the neck. Let's say him and Jadeja and in the same team. That will be very good in terms of two confident players if they are. Jadeja, we've seen ever since really 20. I would say since he scored his 86 not out against England in that test match where he hadn't really played a game in that series, and he came in and he scored 86 not out, and he kind of did a rescue effort for India. But Hanuma Vihari also scored 56, and I think he got a fifer in that game as well, Jadeja. The thing is that the two confident players, with Maxwell getting some great form with what he's been doing recently. I feel that this will be very good for CSK to have those kind of players, then both providing bowling options. And as I said, if Jadeja gets hit around in T20s, which he nowadays kind of does, bowling maybe him 2 overs and Maxwell 2 overs, it may not be such a bad thing, and maybe the damage may be limited. And if they fire with a ball on their days, I mean, you've seen Maxwell, he can bowl economically. Jadeja, if he gets a few wickets, it may actually be a good thing for CSK. And so, yeah, that's where I think that he could go. And it'll be two franchises where he hasn't gone before, and so maybe try his luck, because he may not, Delhi may not really take him. They've already got their overseas players, and yeah, I feel that it's kind of a clean slate for him where he can go to these franchises and really, he hasn't been there before. He can just kind of make an impression there. So that's on Glenn Maxwell. Then Sheldon Cottrell, I mean, I thought really he had been pretty good at the start as well in the first 2 games or so. That Rahul Tewatia over kind of really didn't put. I mean, we all saw concern with his death bowling from even before. I mean, we hadn't seen him bowl at the death much, but he just didn't seem to have the variations at the death and kind of seemed like a new ball bowler. And the thing is that it kind of showed where, he bowled full tosses, bowled in the slot, the Tewatia, and the over that really bowled Rajasthan was close and, made them win the game. And again, it was good for all of us. It was good for cricket because it just, that innings from Rahul Tewatia was an inspiration. And, I mean, it will always be remembered. Probably the people may even remember the shot. As for cricket watchers in the last decade or so, they'll probably definitely remember Sharjah for that knock 100%. And because I certainly would, and it was an incredible thing to see. But it wasn't an incredible thing for Sheldon Cottrell because they paid about 7.8 crores for him or something, and yeah, he didn't really pay off. He only played about 2 or 3 games, and they've released him. And I'm not really sure where he's gonna go because you look at all the bowling attacks that there are. I'm not really sure anyone would want to take a gamble on Sheldon Cottrell. In fact, they may even give it to a young Indian quick and say, you give runs, but you don't take up an overseas player. India's producing a crop of fast bowlers, and your improvement can maybe lead you on to bigger and better things. And so you can come back and be even better than you were the previous year. And so it's kind of a cycle where you invest in players, and if they come good, if you give them the right platform, you have faith in them, then it'll be good. And so for Indian fast bowlers, I think that other franchise in the IPL would rather do that than pay, to get Sheldon Cottrell, who hasn't really shown that he can adapt, especially at the death. And so that's on Sheldon Cottrell, and it'll be interesting to see who gets him if he gets a team at all, unfortunately. And again, look, I like Sheldon Cottrell, kind of brings this energy, bowls very well with the new ball, and his whole salute celebration and everything, but it is what it is. There's Krishnappa Gautam next, who honestly, apart from he scored 33 of 10 balls or 11 balls, I believe, against Mumbai Indians in 2018. And that's it. I mean, he then, in this, I think, Karnataka Premier League game, he scored 134 not out and took 8 for 25, I think, in his 4 overs, which is ridiculous, which is probably the best game contribution that anyone can get. But in the IPO is Kings 11, it just didn't work out, and I honestly don't know who's gonna. I honestly reckon that he may be just going around between these teams that, like for example, maybe Rajasthan Royals, Kings 11 may not, probably won't want him again. Maybe Delhi Capitals will want him, and I'm saying these two because the pitches are slow if the tournament will be played in India, and even if it is in the UAE. You've seen bowlers like Akshar Patel they keep it tight because of the slow conditions of the Firozshah Kotla and also in in the UAE. So getting someone like a Krishnappa Gautam who's also a left-arm off spinner and tries to he genuinely bowls quicker and tries to fire it in. I honestly think that those two teams may have an option to get him, but even then, I think that he may get a team, but he may not really feature in many games of the tournament, and he may just be a bit of a squad player. He's not a bad player, but then he may not be in many teams' plans, unfortunately, and that's on him. Mujib. Now, here's the thing. There have been rumors that KKR are looking for him, and honestly, I don't mind that at all because Sunil Narayan, you don't know how he's going to get injured and, his fitness issues, and so if you let the batsman open the batting, and Mujibur Rahman can bat, especially off Rashid Khan. I mean, there was a game where he played for the Brisbane Heat against the Adelaide Strikers, and Brisbane Heat was 68 for 8, and they almost won the game. I think there was Alex Pearson, I think that's his name. Oh no, is it? No, either Jimmy Pearson, I'm not sure. I think it's Jimmy Pearson. And Mujibur Rahman played very well to get them close, and but they really should have won the game in the end. I felt very bad that they didn't. All right, there was some terrible bowling from the Adelaide Strikers, really until the last 2 overs. I would say maybe Peter Sidhu's last over. He uses experience, but apart from that, there was a bit terrible bowling after about the 11th over or so, but. Still, they got close, and it would have been a very ridiculous one of the most ridiculous wins in franchise cricket, and probably the most ridiculous win in the Big Bash. But wasn't to be. They lost by probably like 2 runs or so, and so that's the thing that I'm saying. That Mujib Rahman, he played Rashid Khan very well. He played him positively, and we even there was a one-off test against India where he just hit a few boundaries here and there, so he can bat. And so you could rather just play him low down the order about number 8 or so because, you're playing him for his bowling and you let the batsmen do the batting. And with the middle order that KKR have and with the exciting players that they have at the top like Shubman Gill, and if, Rahul Tripathi can also open at the top with Shubman Gill, I think it'll be a very good team. And so it still is a very good team. I just feel that they've had 2 scrappy seasons. And yeah, that's the reason why I feel that was my segue into KKR, because I just thought that they would want Mujibur Rahman. But coming to Mujibur Rahman and Kings 11, well, as I said, it's just overseas and just the overseas combinations. And Kings 11 they could have either gone for dropping Maxwell earlier in the tournament, or they could have just favoured their batting. And they chose the second option. They put Chris Gill in, they put Glenn Maxwell in, they put Jimmy Neesham in, and they put Nicholas Puran in. So they had to go with an all-local bowling attack. I mean, and instead of Jimmy Neesham, they may have also sometimes played Chris Jordan. So they had to really mostly go with an all-local bowling attack. And Mohammad Shami did pretty well for them, but didn't really bowl the death. I mean, until the time where he defended 5 in the Super Over against the Mumbai Indians that led to another Super Over, he hadn't really got it right at bowling at the death. And so, then once again, apart from him, this attacker seems very blunt, despite how well the 2 wrist spinners do in Murugan Ashwin and Ravi Bishnoi. I think that they have a base to build from, but they're going to have to see with 53.2 crores. Worst case scenario, they can still play Chris Jordan. I'm not saying he's a bad bowler, but he does go for runs. And, it's when it doesn't go his way, he does go for runs. And honestly, I'll be honest, and I've said this in a previous video, I'm not a big fan of death bowling specialists. Just get a, yes, Mohammad Shami is pretty good, and he doesn't have to bowl the deaths for you. But I'm saying it, if they aren't doing their job, if they just go for runs, and they usually just bowl cutters all the time. You look at Sam Curran and Chris Jordan tried to bowl cutters, and even when you see for even England when in the third T20 South Africa, Rassie van der Dusen especially really tore into him, and it was kind of a capitulation at the end where England were going, there was this partnership between Faf du Plessis and Rassie van der Dusen, and in the end South Africa, despite the fact they lost the game, they ended up with a very good score, and it's because they kind of rely on slow balls too much, and even when he bowls just like optically, even when he bowls quickly, even if he bowls like a 142k ball, it doesn't even look that fast because you've seen the amount of slow balls, and he doesn't really hit his areas that well, to be honest. I mean, apart from he has a good Yorker, but apart from that, if he misses it, which he still goes for runs because he doesn't really have he's not that consistent. I'm not saying it's a bad bowler, but he isn't that consistent. You never quite know what you'll get from him. And so, yeah, that's the reason why they have to kind of get this bowler that they can rely on at the death and get a few wicket takers, because they've also got Arshdeep Singh, who got on, this is a left arm medium pacer who looks, a good bowler, and he got Andre Russell caught behind and so on, and thought he deserved that wicket because, it's a very good wicket to get. And I felt that he bowled well in the IPL 2020, and so that's why they've also retained him. And so they've got a base to build from, but they need a few more players, and they need I'm not really sure they need a replacement for Mujib, if I'm completely honest, because they didn't really use him, and they already have two wrist spinners. But they definitely, I would say, need to get a lower order batsman, and they need to just spend, apart from the lower order batsman, just go all out on the bowling, because they need it. And the thing is, if you even look at the players that they've got, I don't understand what their thinking was, because I think when they got this side in the auction, they kind of tried to make a really modern team and maybe try and do something which they wouldn't have done. I think since 2018 they've kind of tried to do this with trying, Ashwin is a very good captain, yes. I mean, but they put Ashwin as captain, which was interesting because you wouldn't have thought Ashwin was a Kings 11 kind of guy from before. Maybe you thought he'd create his own legacy, but it was kind of scorned because of, despite the fact that they did well the first half of the tournament and then tapered off usually in 2018 and 2019. And they started making changes a lot and everything, and so it clearly has been a bit of a convoluted road for Kings 11. And so Lokesh Chahal as captain, I'm a big fan of that. I mean, not for any other, I'm not saying Ashwin is bad or anything, because I've complimented Ashwin many times, but I'm saying that they just have to kind of stop going for these. Look, Jimmy Neesham and Hardus Villion, you're going to play them. What are you actually... I just don't understand. I'm paying 7.8. I understand left arm seamer, but 7.8 crores for Sheldon Cottrell, I'm not so sure. And that's the reason why I just feel that they kind of have to look at what exactly they have to do. Get a replacement for Maxwell. Get a thing. But because really, I felt that Kings 11 have kind of bought a surplus and they didn't know what they need, they didn't know what they wanted to do with them. I mean, maybe they did, but they just couldn't fit them in, because honestly, you have these all-rounders who specialize in neither skill, no disrespect, and they just can't fit in the team to do either skill to a specialist level. And that's why, so what's the point of wasting your overseas quota? So honestly, they've released 5 overseas players. So next season, 2021, we'll see a new identity for Kings 11 probably, with the same captain and everything and so on, but we may see that middle order core kind of changing up a little bit, and just see the squad changing up a little bit, and just kind of getting real more specialist names, which I think that they do need. And they need to get maybe one or two all-rounders, but don't try and just for the sake of it get someone who isn't specialized at either skill, and it almost never works. So that's Kings 11, 53.2 crores. I believe 17.5 crores more than the next team, well, the next highest purse, and that team is RCB. And so, Kings 11, if they should, I should hope it's money well spent. And if it is money well spent with 53.2 crores, they can really do something this season and this auction and get the players that they need. Then there's Rajasthan Royals, who have taken, I first say the players that they have released, and they've released a few. They've released Steve Smith, Varun Aran, Tom Karan, Angit Rajput, someone Joshi, Shashank Singh, O'Shane Thomas, and Akash Singh. And honestly, we never saw anything of A. Joshi, Shashank Singh, O'Shane Thomas. I mean, we've seen O'Shane Thomas internationally, but I mean, we've seen him play a few games in 2019, but we haven't really seen him, feature in 2020 at all. And then there's Akash Singh, and so who we didn't see any of either. And straight away, the statement player who they have released, and there are two ways that you can look at this, is Steven Smith. Now, you could look at this in a way to say, or it just didn't, but they maybe just wanted to kind of freshen things up, and they just didn't want to be enticed by how good a player he is. They wanted to kind of really make sure that they get some new identity by, for example, Sanju Samson leads Kerala, and so giving him responsibility, making him captain, and captaining all these big star international players like, Ben Stokes and Josh Butler and Jofra Archer. And so it would be giving responsibility to a player who, as I said, you want to invest in. And as I've seen Sanju Samson play in the IPL since he was a 19-year-old, and I think his first 50 was against RCB, it was a 63, and I was a very big fan of him ever since I saw him. And that's the thing, is that I'm very happy that he's got this responsibility, and it'll be interesting to see how he goes, because leading Kerala and leading a big IPL, an IPL team, there are things different, and you're captaining such big players. So you're captaining 3 World Cup winners, and that will be, a big thing. And so that's the reason why there are many high-profile players that he has to deal with, many different characters that he has to deal with. There's fellow domestic players, international players, and so no disrespect to captaining anyone. I'm just saying that it would be an interesting thing to see how he fares. And that's the thing. So Steven Smith, as I said, they probably released him because same thing with Ajinkya Rahane. Despite the fact I thought he had a good 2019 season and included 100 as well. And they just kind of didn't want to be enticed by the fact that they are good players. They want to say, how has it been in Rajasthan Roads, and maybe if we can change the aura of the team, and maybe we can kind of get a few more dynamic players, then maybe it can change our fortunes. And we need, this talisman. They obviously need to improve their bowling, which I'll get to, but they kind of didn't want to be kind of tempted to keep these players because of their pedigree. Or you could say another way, why would you want to kind of trade off Ajinkya Rahane last season and release Steve Smith? Because you've seen how, one is the thing about Ajinkya Rahane. He has given some very good starts for Rajasthan Royals. People think he's, slow, but there have been many times where he's got this, 36 off not very many. Remember against RCB in 2018, 36 off 19. He scored 100 in the 2019 season. He does give fast starts, and, if you're chasing a low score, he can anchor the innings. I mean, I can understand him and Steve Smith there was a problem, which I'll get to later, but the fact is, they have shown they can still play in the same team. We've seen them play in a rising Pune super giant, and everything went well there. Steve Smith scored about 500 runs in that season, I believe 510 runs or something, and almost led RPS to the final, especially after finishing second last in the previous season. And Steve Smith was injured as well after playing the first few games. And we've seen him play so many brilliant T20 knocks. We've seen Ajinkya Rahane play so many brilliant T20 knocks. We've seen them both succeed at the international level in Test cricket especially. we've seen how good players they are. So who else are you gonna get who's better than Ajinkya Rahane, more of a marquee name than Ajinkya Rahane opening the bank? Let's be completely honest. I mean, Ben Stokes are opening. I think he should bat as a normal position at, maybe number 4 or number 5. And if Josh Butler can open and there's Sanju Samson, maybe you could go for it that way. But I'm saying that maybe then okay, yes, I can understand why they've released Anika Rane, but who else are you gonna get at number 3 who's better than Steve Smith, has shown time and time and again? Like I said for Williamson, I mean, with Williamson, people were skeptical and still he's shown how he's done. Steve Smith has shown, over a number of seasons, he's shown that he can play in T20 cricket many times, and he's played many good innings, and that's the reason why I'm very confused why people just, there's always this talk about strike rate, so on and so forth. Because even when Ajinkya Rahane was in the same team as him in Rising Pune Super Giant and even Rajasthan Royals, they both played very well. And so that's why I'm saying, and you saw when he was captain, especially in 2019, when he wasn't captain, you saw how he was playing. People saying he was rusty. When he was captain, he scored, a couple of 50s and looked, much better when he was playing. And that's the reason why I'm saying, look, you could look at it in two ways. There's no wrong opinion about this, and I understand why they made the decision they did. And maybe if I was in, maybe their team management looking at through from their eyes, I maybe would have even wavered towards their decision and maybe made that decision. So kind of a 60-40 split. But yeah, Steve Smith, I can actually see him coming to CSK, because if Faf du Plessis opens with, maybe like a Gaikwad or Jagadish, someone like that, and Ambati Raidu plays a number 4, Suresh Raina is a class player, but he may be short of cricket. And so Steve Smith, he's a brilliant player. He can play. He's got more years left than Suresh Raina. And so playing him in at number 3, you may say as far as leadership is concerned, too many cooks spoil the broth, in the fact that Faf du Plessis, MS Dhoni, who, I mean, as I said, he's almost 40 years, probably 40 years old now. So again, you're looking to the future for a leader if Steve Smith is bought. And Faf du Plessis, Steve Smith, MS Dhoni, you've got Dwayne Bravo as well, and you have got sufficient leaders in that team, and you've got very good players as well in that team. And so, yeah, I honestly think Steven Smith to CSK will, if you look through all the other sides, will probably be the best fit if Steve Smith comes to CSK. Of course, he'll get a team in this auction, and if he doesn't, I'll be very surprised. I honestly can't see Steven Smith playing for CSK. So then there's Varun Aaron, who, it's kind of a shame, as I said in my Rajasthan Royals, when I was analysing their performances. And the thing is that there was a time when, in 2014, there were 2 tours kind of back-to-back overseas tours where he, in England in 2014, he went and bowled, and I would say he was the best bowler out of the lot, especially as the Test series progressed and India's batting, the totals kept on getting lower. And so that's the reason why I felt that he was kind of a standout bowler in the 2014 tour. And especially in Australia, he went and he bowled just 153, and incredibly exciting to watch him bowl. You've seen him, especially also in 2019, he's the only one where he, especially that delivery ball to Shubman Gill, his knuckleball swings, and it's I've not seen that for anyone. He's probably the first one who invented that. Andrew Ty invented the knuckleball, but Varun Aaron getting a knuckleball to swing and coming back in and foxing Shubman Gill and getting him bowled. I really think that after seeing him bowl that well, it was very sad for me to see him hit around the place. He's been amongst the IPL for a while. He's played for, when they were Delhi Daredevils, he played for them. And if he played for Delhi, he played for RCB in 2014. May have also played, he's played for Rajasthan Royals. I'm trying to think if there's any other teams he's played for. I was about to say Kings 11, but I'm not sure. We may not have. So he's played for, I would say, to be safe, three franchises. And yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, I don't think he's played for Kings 11. So three franchises, and he's been around for a while. And so, he's not that old. He's still, he still can bowl fast as well. He can bowl in the low 140s. But yeah, I'm not surprised that they did release him. I mean, for me, when he bowls well, he can really bowl well. I would say when he bowls well, he's better than the other, Indian players that they've got in that attack. Yes, they've got Tyagi, who, it's good that they have retained. And, he has been a net bowler for India, win their tour of Australia. So, and it was his first season last season. And one thing that I saw was that his first ball was always good for Tyagi. I mean, you even saw a few times where he just kind of got a bit of a away movement at the last minute when the batsman plays and misses. And, I felt that just by that, despite the fact that he had a tough first season, there is still some promise there. And I feel that, having faith in him, I'm very happy that they did retain him. And yeah, I think that it's a very good move to retain him. And so I feel that releasing Varun, and I'm not surprised they did that, but I'm honestly thinking that he's been, I still think that bowling at his best, he would be better than the other, Indian options, that especially pacers, if they hadn't released any of them, that they would have. But coming to Indian pacers, Ankit Rajput, now he's played for KKR, he's played for Kings 11 Punjab, and he's also played for Rajasthan Royals. And thing is, once again, he's a very good bowler. He bowls low 140s, he swings the ball, and there are many bowlers in India. You've seen, as I said, the crop of fast bowlers in India, but fortunately, especially, I kind of thought the innings that sealed the deal for him was the 60 runs of 4 overs, where Hardik Pandya hit 60 of 24, and they got to 190 odd. Yes, Rajasthan Royals won that game, but yeah, that's my take on that, in saying that maybe that innings was kind of a ticket to say they didn't really want to persist with him. And so that's my take on Ankit Rajput. I'm not saying it's a bad bowler, because I've seen him bowl and he bowls very well, and I'm sure he should get some kind. Because look, Indian pacers, they would get a buy at auctions, and he is young, and so yeah, I'm sure that he will get a team. Then there's Tom Curran. As I said, like the Chris Jordan example, in fact, he's probably even more one-dimensional, because he literally only bowls cutters and absolutely nothing else. He hadn't had a good time in South Africa when England toured there for the T20s. I mean, the ODI series was cancelled because I believe England kind of refused to play because of the whole COVID scare that was going on then, and obviously the new variant from South Africa now. But the new variant wasn't related. That was from before. But I'm saying that the thing is that he didn't have a great time in the T20s, and he always just keeps on bowling slow balls. And probably there's only been one good ball that I've seen him bowl in his life, and that was to, I believe it was in the 5th ODI in 2018, or no, 2017 maybe, when England went to, so the last time England went to Australia to play the Ashes, they lost 4-0, but then they won the ODIs, I believe 4-1, and he bowled this Yorker to David Warner. It was a brilliant ball. It's probably the best ball that I've seen him bowl in his life. And, I've seen him play many times. And so, I'm not saying he's a bad bowler, but he has to kind of develop a repertoire. He can't keep on bowling slow balls all the time. And his batting at the moment seems to be better than his bowling. And again, no disrespect to him, but I'm saying I'm not sure anyone would really want to take a gamble, because unless they have one overseas slot and Rajasthan Royals buy him back for less, and I'm not even sure if they spent that much money for him anyway. So that's my thing on that. I just think that it'll be interesting to see who buys him, if at all anyone does. And yep, sorry, but it just may be how it is. And so yeah, that's Ankit Rajput. And O'Shane Thomas didn't feature in the 2020 season, and he's a very good bowler, but as I said, I mean, we've seen him in ODIs, especially when he bowls in the power play and he bowls fast. When he bowls, just get him on straight away. He makes use of that hard new ball. He bowls 150, and He really is an exciting bowler, but the problem is, I mean, I think that in T20s you could say if he bowls his 4 overs up front, then maybe with his fitness issues he kind of gets tired after a while, and so if he bowls his 4 overs up front, then I honestly think that it may not be that bad. But unfortunately, obviously the overseas conundrum: would you really want to sacrifice an overseas player, especially the integral players that they have in Ben Stokes, Josh Butler, and Jofra Archer? And speaking of which, they'd probably want to get another overseas player. They wouldn't be thinking of playing Shane Thomas there, probably. And yeah, so I'm not surprised that they released him. He's a very good bowler, but I'm not actually sure anyone is really going to pick him because of, as I said, fitness issues and a very unique role, but a very one-dimensional role that I'm not sure that many teams would be able to accommodate. And Akash Singh, we didn't really get to see you. So 34.85 crores remaining. They released, well, I wouldn't really, they kind of released surplus and also names that just didn't really work out. And yeah, 34.85 crores, they can still work with that, and they can get probably another high profile player in place of Steve Smith, definitely, and get a few bowlers who they'll have faith in and maybe not put that much, because remember, the bowlers that they did have last season are still very good bowlers. They just had an off season, and it does happen, and so they are inexperienced, they are still learning, and so I feel that backing these Indian seamers will go a long way for these franchises in the future. And that's Rajasthan Royals. So now coming back to the last team which I need to talk about, which is Delhi Capitals. Now they released players who I don't think Kimo Pool played. I mean, he may play like 1 or 2 games this season, but that's it. And Lami Chane, I'm not sure if he played that much. Maximum, I'm not even sure if he played at all. So apart from that, they released players, and Jason Roy, obviously, he pulled out of the tournament, and they just released him for that. And so then again, they've kind of released players who did feature in the season, in Alex Carey, Mohit Sharma, Tushar Deshpande. Tushar Deshpande, I wouldn't really say there was much of a sample size. I mean, he did play a few games, but you couldn't really... things just didn't go well for him. He got put under pressure a bit, and hardly played even half a season, and so just played a handful of games, and so you can't really take much from that. But who knows, Delhi may even buy him back. I wouldn't be surprised if they do. I don't think that you can form an opinion on someone with only playing a handful of games. Mohit Sharma has been in the IPL for a long time now, played for CSK, he's played for Kings 11 Punjab, and he's played for Delhi Capitals, and he's still a very good bowler, but he's getting on in years, and so they did release him. He's still a very good bowler. I'm sure he'll be able to get aside, and even if he doesn't play all the games, I'm sure he can come in and do a good job. So yeah, that's Mohit Sharma. And Alex Carey, as I said, he was a forced change because Shimon Hetmeyer had to sit out because Rishabh Pant got injured, and so they didn't really have a keeper. And so Alex Carey filled in that role. I would say he's good when he opens the batting, but Delhi, if they play Shikhar Dhawan and Marcus Stoinis up top, then it kind of doesn't really leave a role for Alex Carey. He's a very good keeper, very good batsman, and he'll get a team. I'm sure that he may get a team. He may not actually get many games because, as I said, an overseas keeper who probably has to play at the top of the order. Other teams have options at the top of the order, and so taking up an overseas player would kind of be a bit of a problem, as they would have other roles to fill in the side as well. And so yeah, that's the reason why he probably wouldn't get a game, or maybe 1 or 2 games max, but he may get a team. Jason Roy, I mean, this is the thing here. So we haven't seen when he's played in the PSL that the times that he has played well, I mean, this is when playing in subcontinental leagues, and I'm saying the times where he has scored 50s, he hasn't actually scored them at a very high strike rate. And so that's the reason why I'm saying this whole playing franchise leagues in the subcontinent has been a very uncomfortable journey for him, I would say, because he has got a few runs here and there, but he hasn't really managed to kind of score the tempo he would like. And I've seen what he's doing in the Big Bash this season. We're playing on the tracks in Australia where he can play shots. They're much the ball comes onto the bat much better. And I feel that maybe in subcontinental leagues, Jason Roy may not be the best player for, despite the fact that he has the reputation, he's a World Cup winner, he's a dynamic player. Unless you're going to play him in batting friendly wickets, I'm not really sure that he would be the greatest option. I mean, look, he's much more consistent than he was before, but I'm saying that in, so you even see him in international, he's one of the best ODI openers in the world. But I just feel that this venture of him playing leagues in the subcontinent may not be one that works out. So I'm not very surprised that they've released him, honestly. And so, yeah, Akima Poe and Lamichane, they hardly or even may not have featured at all. They have 12.8 crores left, and they have a fairly settled 11. If their bowlers keep fit, if Nokia stays fit, and Rabada stays fit as well, they have a very settled 11. Ashwin has had a few injury problems, especially kind of hip injuries, and nowadays a few back injuries. And so if he stays fit, I reckon that they kind of released the surplus from their squad, because Lamichane with the overseas combination, and they already have, they have, when your local spinners are firing, you don't really need to tinker with the combination that much and try to take overseas players out just to put an overseas spinner in. I mean, you'd much rather have a local spinner firing, because it kind of uncomplicates things. Because the thing is, generally, you look for overseas quicks, but you don't look for overseas spinners, because you back the fact that there are good spinners in a country, where there is assistance for the spinners. And that's why I'm saying, there is obviously, as I said, I keep on saying the crop of fast bowlers, but generally you'd much rather make sure that you get your subcontinental spinner rather than an overseas spinners, to make sure you can focus on other roles that kind of need bolstering with star names. And they have 12.8 crores. I don't think there'll be much business. They may get one or two higher profile players. They've got 4 overseas slots left, and I mean, I say that, but 12.8 crores, you may not really be able to get the players you want. And because it's a mini auction anyway, there may not actually be that many high profile buys, so kind of players that you'd want. So of course, every player, they can fill the role, but I'm saying that they may not really be able to get those players that let's face it, they don't really need all these big marquee names, because they already have them. And so players who fill in roles for them, who probably, I would say that batting didn't fire last season, so I'm not going to say buy another player, but I'm saying that probably buy a keeper, definitely, and buy a local keeper, so that as a backup, so if Rishabh Pant gets injured, maybe then they don't have to do any forced changes. So that's on Delhi Capitals. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the very low spending, money that they have. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and please share this video with your friends. And yeah, that was the IPL retentions, all the 8 teams. And remember, this is my opinion. What's yours?